Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, Red O'Loughlin here. Today on the Corner Bookstore, I'm honored to have a Canadian author, Candace Macphie. She's listed as a travel adventurer, and looking at her books, they absolutely have a lot of adventure and a lot of travel, and we'll get a chance to talk about these and many other things that Candace wants to share. So Candace, please join me.
Hi.
Hi there. Travel adventure, is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement, yes.
Okay, so you start traveling and you start writing about it, and they end up in books, and all of a sudden now you have a new challenge, COVID. Now you have another challenge. Another book needs to be written. So tell us a little bit about the journey. When did you start writing? When did you get the idea for your first book?
Okay, there's a couple of questions in there. Fair. All right, when I started writing was probably when I was little. I always sort of had a journal and cracking open and sort of jotting down my thoughts. This particular story started way back in the 90s, and I was journaling and taking this trip around the world. And then I finished that trip around the world, got a job in an office, and put the journals away for a very long time. And just before or during COVID, I picked them up again and thought, well, I've always wanted to tell this story. So I took the time, and it was a lot of time, and reworked those journals into this travel adventure series.
Around the world, that's a dream for many, many people. I've only done it once, and it was interesting. But you're talking about around the world, but you're actually stopping and visiting. It's not a business trip like mine was, where
No.
I had to do things. But so what prompted the around the world, and what places did you select?
Okay. So what prompted the around the world was it's almost out of desperation, to be fair. My mom was sick for a long time when I was growing up. She got sick with cancer when I was 14 and died just before my 23rd birthday. It was a lot of time I spent as a caregiver. And after she died, I was really lost. I had no idea who I was, what I liked to do, because I spent all my spare time looking after her. So I moved, I was born and raised in Montreal in Canada, and I moved to Toronto, and I tried to dig a life out for myself, and I couldn't, I couldn't get any traction. I was still lost in terms of myself. So that's what kicked off this trip. I started with a 3 week backpacking trip to Greece, and I liked it so much that I thought, okay, well, this is what I need to do. So that's what started it. There's always a starting point, isn't there? And as for the choices of where I went, I started in England, and I traveled around the UK. And then from there, I bought myself an around the world airline ticket. And I had just a couple of things that I had planned to do. I wanted to go to the Middle East and see the pyramids. I booked a safari in Africa, and I had an Australian work visa. Beside that, everything else was just stuff in between, and I kind of figured it out along the way.
Did you make North or South America?
I did not. So the South America part I hit later on, but on this trip there was no Asia and no South America.
Okay. Uh, the the first book you wrote was what? I have 5 of them down here.
You do. The first book is the UK and Ireland and Russia. So that's the first book, kind of dipping my feet into the traveling thing, figuring out how it works. Also, I think as a sort of intertwined between that, there's a lot of dealing with grief and recognizing that I was lost for a long time, and just trying to figure out how to put myself back together. And that's really that first book is just getting my footing, making some mistakes, and really just acknowledging where I was.
Okay, so you're in a place like Russia or
Hmm.
Greece.
Hmm.
Uh, they have the Cyrillic alphabet. The
Hmm.
languages can be a little bit difficult sometimes to
Hmm.
understand.
Hmm.
Uh, how does that help you figure out who you are and where you're going? Because obviously it worked. So what did you uncover that said, "Hey, this is Candace, and this is what I need to do"?
Yeah, I think the there's a couple things. First of all, the alphabets were interesting. I was traveling with this Australian girl for a while in Russia, and we kind of had a system where we would, I would yell out, I would look at the travel book trying to look for metro exit and yell out like hangman, backwards R, A, and she would look for the exit. So we had a system in terms of how to get around that. I think really it was about the struggle that just every day, just in terms of finding food, because food was difficult to find sometimes. Um, Getting around, just spending an hour in the train station, just trying to find the right train because everything was in a different language. I think it's about the perseverance and the tenacity, and the times when you're dealing with stuff and you're so frustrated, and but it's in those moments where, yay, we got on the right train, we're going to this place. And it's in those moments of those small wins, and over time, just time to reflect when you're on the train or on the bus, and just taking the time to really dig into how you feel, and you get a different exposure to different things that are important when you're not at home, right? you
Okay,
you appreciate different things.
so time heals a lot, and that's true. Reflection, uh,
Mhm.
that you have the time to do it. So
Mhm.
exposure to things that you may or may not even knew existed. I mean, I've seen some interesting food and other things, but anyway, I noticed in the Cyrillic world, there's one place I went to is Bulgaria, and they had
Mhm.
both English letters, even though they were in the Bulgarian language, and the Cyrillic on the same street signs. So
Mhm.
you could actually make out where you were. And I thought that was really neat. Did you run across
Oh,
any?
um, in Croatia, although it's not a different alphabet, they did have English signs. That was one of the first places we came across that had English signs, which was good because we'd rented a car at that point and drove down the coast of Croatia. Uh, Other than that, no, Russia was. I think Russia was the first our first step out of the English language into a different language, and they didn't even number their metro exits. And you go to Moscow and you get off the metro, if you take the wrong exit, you're kilometers away from where you need to be. So a lot of times it was just about just muddling through. I think it's just what, and sometimes it would take us hours to find something because nobody would, you couldn't ask for directions because nobody spoke English. So anyways, it was an interesting time for sure. And it was so beautiful, it was worth it. So
Okay, so the exits, sometimes they help a lot. Sometimes, as you say, you get off on the wrong one and there's your adventure.
yeah, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about landing place, Johannesburg visit. That's a little far down there for a Canadian to go all the way. That's literally halfway around the world.
It is. It is. It's literally halfway around the world. And ironically, I had met a man at Canada Day in a Canadian bar in Moscow. And he gave me his email because he lived in Johannesburg. And he said, well, when you come, send me a note, drop me a line, and you can stay with me. And when you're backpacking, you take a free place. Absolutely. So I emailed him and said, hey, I'm going to be in town at this day. And he said, well, I'm not going to be there, but I'll get one of my guys to pick you up. And I said, okay, sure. And so I got picked up at the airport by a French Canadian guy from Montreal. And he and his roommate both played hockey, and they had hockey bags on their back porch. And I thought, oh my God, how can I be in Johannesburg with two guys that play hockey? And it was just the most random thing. So anyways, I went to the one rink in Johannesburg, and there was like a drip. It was in a shopping mall, and there was a drip from the ceiling, so they didn't play on the blue line. There was a big drip hole. But other than that, yeah, it was a very interesting time. So Johannesburg, I don't think I had a usual Johannesburg experience. It was probably different than most people have. But once I left Johannesburg and went down the coast of South Africa to Cape Town, that's when I think it got a little more real and a little different. So it was good.
Did you make two different trips to Africa? Because one I'm looking at, Beautifully Warped, was about bush camping. Was that on that same trip?
Yeah, it's all on the same trip. I first started writing, and it's an interesting thing writing. You figure out kind of how you want to tell the story, and then what do you want to share? And my goal when I started writing these books was I wanted people to be able to take the trip. I wanted you to take the whole trip in terms of the personal journey and the physical journey. And you need quite a few words to get that in. It's an interesting thing when you tell a travel story because every place is new. So it uses up quite a few words when you're trying to describe a new place because there's not really repeats. When you read another book, you might describe the house and then all the action happens in the house. So you don't have to use your words to describe the places as much. So because I wanted the reader to experience what it was like to take the train and what it was like to get lost and then what it was like to stay in a hostel with completely weird people. And so it blew out into these 5 books. So it is one continuous journey around the world. And Beautifully Warped is actually a 6-week safari that I took from Nairobi to Harare. And it was in an overland truck, and I was on my own with 26 strangers and living on essentially this converted Mack truck into a travel vehicle, like a bus, and living in tents. And I'd never camped before. I camped one time when I popped the trunk, and then we just took stuff out of the trunk and then packed it up again. I had never put a tent together. I did not know what bush camping was. I thought everything was bush camping because aren't you camping outside? Like, I didn't realize that bush camping was when there's no facilities and you're just in the middle of nowhere. So there was a steep learning curve in my camping, and I by the end of it, I got my groove on, but it was a little bit of a shock to really realize what bush camping was for me.
So the bush camping, there's no refrigerators, there's no toilets, there's no running water, no air conditioning.
No, no, you have to watch out for the black mambas when you go pee. Our first night bush camping, we camped with the Maasai warriors, watching the tents for the lions. But I think they were just there to check out the ladies. But anyways, it was nice to know they were nearby. Um, and yeah, and it just kind of went on from there. The hyenas getting into the garbage when we camped in the Serengeti, and yeah, whole bunch of different adventures I had. I just had no idea because back then when I did this, I booked a 6 week safari based on a half an hour, foggy VHS tape video advertising the safari. And they just got me in that half an hour where they showed the sunsets and the animals roaming the plains and everyone having a great time in their tents. And I just thought, that sounds like something I could get behind. I was completely underprepared for, the actual reality of what it was like to live on a truck with a bunch of people. And most of the folks were either from England or from Australia and New Zealand, and they really like curry. Like, I really had no idea how many different curry dishes you could make. Um, Egg curry, just about everything curry. So anyways, just different foods, different experiences, different personalities. So it was a pretty fun time, I have to say. Yeah.
Sounds like a fun time. How much did your backpack weigh?
Uh, 22 kilograms when I left London.
Kilograms.
Uh-huh. 22 kilograms. And
Yeah, that's
a lot. I couldn't get it up on my back. I either had to prop it up on the bed and then sort of winkle it on. I figured it would get lighter as I went on, but I was just kidding myself. I think the main thing was because I was planning on traveling for such a long time and a lot of the countries I was traveling to didn't speak English. So I had a bunch of travel guides. They're not light, they're quite thick. And I also had a real range of clothes. I was trying to have, some warm weather gear, some wet gear. I needed boots to hike. I needed all sorts of stuff. So, and medicine, I had to leave with malaria drugs for Africa. I had, a whole bunch of antibiotics, like just everything. You had to pretty much have everything, your whole house in on your backpack. So, yeah.
And then you also had to have your tent in your bed.
I had a sleeping bag and a sleep mat, but the tent was provided by the safari company. So it was one thing I didn't have to carry, thank goodness.
How many changes of clothes did you typically carry on a backpack?
I might have had 3 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of shorts and t-shirts and a sweater, and a raincoat. There wasn't underwear, bra, one bathing suit. That was pretty much it. And it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you have to wear the same thing over and over again until you can find a place to wash your clothes.
How often did you find a wash-up area?
There was times where it was 3 weeks. I would be hand washing my socks and underwear in the sink, but other than that, putting those same pants on again got a little bit tiring after a while. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is my wife and I did a 500-mile walk across Spain a few years ago, the Camino de Santiago.
Yeah.
Her backpack was 15 pounds, mine was 18. And we had 3 changes of clothes that we literally washed each night, whatever we wore that day. But they were very quick drying. You could hang them up in a few hours. They were literally dry.
Mm-hmm.
we didn't live in bush camping conditions. The only reason that my wife decided to go or chose to go was that she had to have a private room, private bath every night. And we found them every single night except one. And it turned out to be a very, very successful walk. It took us 30 days to walk the 500 miles, and we were gone from home about 7 weeks.
That sounds fantastic. Wow, I'm so envious. That sounds great.
But finding color, now we're talking, that's your backpack in Greece.
Yes, that's
What was really unique about Greece that you just have a fantastic memory of?
I think oh, so many things. I'm just trying to think. Um, Santorini is, I know it's very popular now and very overdone, but um, it just has, for one island, it has this red beach and it's literally red sand. It was the hottest beach I've ever been to, walking on red sand. It was like suntanning in hell, but this blue, 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 blue water with this red beach, it was amazing. And it was so clean. I think I was just completely surprised. There was no dust anywhere. The streets were beautiful. Everything was so well maintained. And it was just the most beautiful, stunning place. It's, every movie you've ever seen with Greece, it's probably in Santorini. And it is just as beautiful there as you would imagine. Just the breeze and the way it sort of just the way you feel just walking around the streets, and the streets are so well maintained and so clean, and there's flowers and everything's white and blue, and that it's just that feeling of walking around the most beautiful place you could ever imagine.
Life Strikes Back is your book about Russia. The books, titles you have are interesting. How did you come up with the names for your books?
The first one, Finding Color, is really because after my mom died, I didn't realize how low I had sunk and how low I was in terms of just living in this really gray, dull world. And Finding Color is really what I did on this first book, and just really discover that there is color. I've had it all along. I just stopped seeing it. So that's what the first book is really about. The second book, Life Strikes Back, is a little more difficult because we're really getting into it in terms of traveling to the Baltics. The Baltics were back then where nobody really went there. It was, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. They were countries that um, weren't on the hit list, if you will. They're in loads of movies now. You see, Riga in movies all the time, but it's not the type of place that people were traveling to. So because of that, it was a pretty difficult time, both from a perspective of the locals. Being a woman traveling is also a unique experience too. Um, the uh, the treatment that you get from the locals in terms of their liberties that they take, and both physically and verbally, is a tough slug. Every day there was some type of harassment that happened, and you just had to persevere and get through it. And that's what this second book is about. It's I took my inspiration from Star Wars, and what I loved about The Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars was that it was a sad book, right? A sad movie. It was difficult. The characters faced so many hard things, but what made the movie so good was the camaraderie and the quips and the way they backed each other up, and they really became a team. And that's what happened in book two. I was traveling with my Australian friend, and between the two of us, we were able to overcome the physical challenges and the mental challenges. And also, it was the time that I really took the space to recover from a grief perspective. So, but it's not a sad book though. It's a good book. It's funny. We have a lot of funny things. We deal with a lot of crazy situations, but also tackle the hard stuff too. So that's book two.
Okay. Uh, Book covers.
Mhm.
You obviously chose ones that are fairly simple, but very definitive about where you are. So a lot of people have difficulty with coming up with a cover, much less a title. But tell us a little bit about your artwork. Did the same person do all of them, or?
Yes, yes. I come from a background where I've hired loads and loads of people, and in my previous life, and I treated this very much the same way in terms of the people I was working with to help me make these books happen. So I interviewed loads of cover designers, and I found this wonderful man named Farouk Bala, and he got me. I gave him a brief and said, "This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'd like to have." The spirit of what the book is, and he came back with the first design. It was pretty close to, it had the same spirit of what the covers are, but the design then sort of morphed into itself in terms of having the girl in the same place on the cover with a map, because it kind of sort of nails you into a time period by having a map. And then I, as much as possible, tried to have on the left side, the starting point, the right side where the book ends, and then with the girl in the middle. So, and the sky colors change and go from like morning to night as the books go along. So there's a little bit there, but it was kind of fun to have some consistency in terms of the font, and the girl and her hair changes, her clothes change. She, she looks a little more haggard as you go along. But yeah, because I was. And but this man was so patient, and he really took the time and was patient with me when I was quite picky about how I wanted things to go. But yeah, he was amazing. So I was very lucky to find the right person to help me with that.
Tell us a little bit about how the editing changed from the first book to the last book you've done. Obviously, there's a major deal there with either developmental editing to get everything out, plus you have a lot, as you said earlier, words, locations, all sorts of things, and then not to mention just the plain language itself. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the editing journey.
The editing journey was probably one of the most humbling journeys I've ever taken. I started writing these books, and I have them all like they're all there. All five of them were there. Um, but I'm not going to say they were books. They were, all the words were parsed into five documents. Let's put it that way. Um, at that point, I'd gone as far as I could in terms of understanding how to write. I had decided the structure, I had decided what I wanted to say, but I didn't know if what I had was any good. The few people that had read it said, "Oh, yeah, it's pretty good." But pretty good wasn't enough. I wanted to write a good book. I wanted to write a book that people would, enjoy reading. And I thought, I'm not going to put my name on something that's not the absolute best of what I can deliver. So I did the same thing again. I interviewed some folks, and finally found, after quite a few false starts, found an amazing developmental editor who took the time and the patience, but also was honest and really helped me learn how to write properly, and dump the extra words, dump the extra scenes, and really focus on what is going to tell the story. So it was years, and I'm honestly telling you, years from when I thought, "Yay, I have a book," to when I actually had a book. It's over and over again went through. I was meticulous in terms of the words I used for certain people, the words people would use, because I'm traveling in an international environment. What words people from England use, what words people from Scotland use, what words people from Australia use, and making sure that I have the slang so everybody sounds like how they would from each country. And not only that, but making sure that each scene has its right to be on the page and furthers the story. So yeah, so that took years, and I have to say again, most humbling journey I have ever taken. I was very good at my old job, and when I quit that job and started to write, I thought, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is great," but man, did I have a lot to learn. And it was fun. It was a fun journey. I enjoy it now, and now it's like a game trying to find the best words, the most succinct way to tell, to write a story is a very, I don't know, nerdily compelling thing that I like to do.
Names. Did you use real names or did you protect the innocent? And if you used real names, did you get a release?
No, nobody's real name is in the book besides mine, and my family's. So they were cool with it. So, and everyone mostly is from a different place. Everyone, if I did not, even as the places I stayed, if it was a bad experience, I changed the name. If it was a good experience, I left the name the same. I figured that was fair. Also, in terms of my rules of how I approached writing a memoir, there's a lot of things that aren't in the book that people told me that were personal to them. So those aren't in the book because they confided in me at that time, and that is not for me to share. What is in there is how I felt and interactions I had with people, which were public in terms of, conversations or things that happened while we were together. But there's no information that someone shared with me that that in confidence, that's not in there.
Any photos or images that you picked up along the way?
Yeah, there's some photographs on my website. Each book has a topic, and there's photographs on my website just to give you a taste of what it was like at that point. They're grainy and a little bit old because they're actually from my camera, which my 35 millimeter camera, but yeah, they're all in there.
Transportation. Did you do a lot of driving or was it trains and buses or?
Yeah, trains, buses, boats, taxis, and the only time I drove was we treated ourselves and rented a car through Croatia because Croatia is a pretty popular travel destination now, thanks to the Game of Thrones. But at the time, Croatia wasn't very popular, and getting through Croatia was very difficult and expensive. So we kind of did the math, and it was just around the same price to be able to rent a car. So it was a real treat after sort of, walking for, kilometers and kilometers to get to a bus station or whatever, to actually just being able to throw your stuff in the car and go. So it was nice. But that was the one time we rented a car.
I found Zagreb very interesting, especially the underground part of it. Did you
Mhm.
explore much of that underground?
I did not get to much of the underground in Zagreb. We were only there for one day because we were trying to get a car and get out to the coast. But the coast did not disappoint. It was, did you travel through Croatia?
I did. I was with the military, and so I had some times when I could drive with other people or be a passenger, and other times when I was driving to. I didn't go down to Dubrovnik, but Makarska was one that I really liked. Split,
Hmm.
a couple other
Hmm.
places there that I just fell in love with because they were just so picturesque, so interesting. Food was great. Just a lot of things there.
Absolutely. Actually, we met two guys from the UN when we were there having dinner in Zagreb, and we spent the night. They dragged us all around. One guy was from Macedonia, and the other guy was from France. So they kind of showed us around town for the one night we were in town. So met some military folks there too.
Yeah, the Macedonia is a pretty interesting place. So they were having some problems with the name. Fyrom, I think, is what they called it back in the 90s when I was there. Former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia, and they were
Mhm.
having problems with Greeks and Macedonia and this and that and whatever. Anyway, but first time I tried to get in there, we were snowed out. Anyway, it's interesting that things happen. We ended up over in Italy, and it turned out to be a beautiful trip anyway. But regardless. So use that. Okay, folks, got that. Just about getting down to the end here on my things. What advice would you give to new authors? We're just about getting to the end. So there must be two or three things that if you're speaking at an event and somebody's asking you, what do you think is really important if you're a new author and getting ready to write, whether it's about
Mhm.
travel or romance or it doesn't matter. What just
Yep.
writing it is a key.
Yeah. I think the first thing is just do it. get it down on paper. That would be my first advice, and just write it, right? And just however you need to write it, just get it down. And then the next thing for me would be, don't be disappointed if that's not the end. Um, to me, writing story, getting it down on paper was a very freeing experience, because you can just get it out. But that, to me, the real work starts then. And this is just me, but I would be at that point, then my advice is, don't give up, find the right person to help you elevate your book. I think thinking you can do it on your own would be, and maybe some folks can, but would be a mistake. I think just getting some feedback, um, in a sense of anything. It could be just, okay, consistency, or, I don't understand what happened here. The clarity of something that you think is clear, having the view of someone else's opinions to be able to say, okay, just reading it cold, I don't understand, like, you lost me here. And the worst thing you can do is disengage your readers. So the getting a second opinion on your book, and someone that you trust, and someone that you actually would respect their opinion, that's important too. And then just taking the time to do the edits. I think for me, what I've learned is anything that distracts your reader from the flow of the story is your job to fix. So whether it's repeating words too many times, too many same reactions, just superfluous words that drag the story down, it's your responsibility to spend the time to go through and get rid of that, to make the reader's experience as smooth as you can. And then that's when you know you have a good story. So taking the time to do it, keeping your confidence up, finding a partner, and then really buckling down and doing those edits.
Okay, you're talking about now writing a book a year. So the first one or two took a longer time. I'm sure the editing took much longer than you ever expected it would. Seems like that's true for all of that editing and everything. Anyway. So you're writing a book a year. I understand you have 3 right now that you're preparing for publication down the road at some point in time. Are these being saved once a year, or are you going to put 2 books out in 1 year?
I think I've had a couple health issues which has dragged it out to a year, but I think I can get more in than just one a year. I think lately it's just been a bit clunky because of dealing with some health issues. But now that I've got those out of the road, which is great, I mentally can focus a bit more on writing. So my goal is to be able to get out to a year.
Okay, we're almost at the end of the show. How can people get in touch with you? How can they buy your books? Do you have any events or anything coming up that you're going to be at in person? So,
Mhm.
world about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. The best way to check out my what I've got going on is my website, and that's CandaceMacphie.com. You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Candace Macphie. And I'm not at any events coming up soon, because I'm just writing just now. But I would love to, please do get in touch. And the books, there's links to the books on the website as well.
Okay, for our audio audience that can't read our crawler, Candace, Candace, Macphie, MACPHIE.com. Now you chose .com as opposed to a lot of other Canadian authors that choose .ca. So in this particular case, her website is CandaceMacphie.com. And just about anything that they need to find can be found there on your website, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I am super happy to have talked to you today. I love travel. I love the little stories. There's just so many things out there. And so I actually look forward to buying 1 or 2 of your books, because I'm interested to see what some of your experiences in places I haven't been to yet. So anyway, Candace, thank you so very, very much. I really and truly appreciate it. And join us again down the road. I'm more than happy to have you. This is Red O'Loughlin. Typically, we have my next show starting in about 20 minutes called The Wise Ones. Had a cancellation last minute, so we're not having that today. I do not know whether my show Talking Heads will be at in an hour and 20 minutes or in 20 minutes. That's to be determined, but that'll be part of the program on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. So with that being said, my talk today, Talking Heads, is about, let's see here, it's health habits for 2025 start right now. And we're on, I believe, the third or fourth week. And we're talking about a personal dashboard about what's important to you and how do you track it and that kind of development. So join me today on Talking Heads to learn more about a better 2025 for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off of the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. See you all next week. Take care. Bye now.
Hello everyone, I'm Simon MacDonald. I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, a very beautiful part of the world. Seems a long way from the USA Global TV station. But remember, USA Global TV is worldwide. It's a fantastic platform. And every Wednesday, I come along here as part of the show of the United Kingdom, News and Culture. And it's just like a family reunion each time. It's one of these amazing stations that has such a beautiful, friendly, and intelligent atmosphere as well. And we reach out to an audience in the most unimaginable places. And I came here, I don't know, must be over a year ago now. I was introduced by Dr. Philip Chan, and I met Ian Plum-Turner and Helena Chard, who are co-presenters on the show. And then Diane Floyd-Bem came along as well. And I mean, the five of us, Dr. Jacalyn, of course, who is our host and our mentor, has just made this show work so well. Tremendous people, lovely time we have, and we impart a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. Nothing's rehearsed. It's all done off the cuff, and it all just gels. And we get great feedback from people coming back and saying how they're enjoying the show. It's lovely to hear, and it's lovely to get that interaction from outside as well. And we're all listeners, and some of us are elevated listeners as well. So we enjoy every second of it, and we hope you do too.